Continuation of review, Nebosh IGC1. Number 11. Question. Outline reasons for maintaining good standards of health and safety within an organization. Outline reasons for maintaining good standards of health and safety within an organization. Sufficient answer. The three main reasons for maintaining good standards of health and safety within an organization are legal, moral, and economic. The moral issues will be to provide a reasonable standard of care and to reduce the injuries, pain, and suffering caused to workers by accident and ill health. The legal aspect will be to avoid enforcement action in civil claims. Economic benefits will be a more motivated workforce will result in increased production rates, the avoidance of direct costs from accident, example, downtime, administrative, investigation, and first aid cost, repair of plant and equipment, employing and training replacement workers, etc. Possibly cheaper insurance premiums, the avoidance of costs associated with legal action, and maintaining the image and company reputation with its various stakeholders. Number 12. List the factor that could be considered when assessing the health and safety competence of a contractor. List the factors that could be considered when assessing the health and safety competence of a contractor. Sufficient answer. The contractor's previous experience with the type of work, the reputation of the contractor amongst previous or current clients, the contents and quality of contractors' health and safety policy and risk assessment, the level of training and qualification of staff, including those with health and safety responsibilities, accident and enforcement history, membership of accreditation or certification body, equipment maintenance and statutory examination records, the detailed proposal, example, method statements for the work to be carried out. Next question, number 13. Following a significant increase, a health and safety campaign is to be launched within an organization to encourage safety working by employees. Following a significant increase, a health and safety campaign is to be launched within an organization to encourage safety working by employees. Letter A. Outline how the organization might ensure that the nature of the campaign is effectively communicated to and understood by the employees. Letter B. Other than poor communication, describe the organizational factors that could limit the effectiveness of the campaign. Sufficient answer. An important prerequisite to ensure that the nature of the campaign is effectively communicated to and understood by the employees are to have clear objectives and targets for the campaign and to be clear on the means of achieving them. The key responsibilities for aspects of the campaign are to be allocated, accepted with due commitment in order to avoid mixed messages. Different means of communications about the campaign via a variety of means like posters, emails, tollback talks, training sessions, etc. should be used. Measures should be taken to include the matter in different languages for people coming from different areas. During the communications, it has to be taken care that avoidance of jargons and the use of plain language is maintained. Toolbox talks, suggestion boxes, surveys, and informal means of consultation can be used to involve employees and to provide a feedback loop to check that employees understand what the campaign is about and to assess the level of support. It is also important to provide feedback to employees on how the campaign is progressing so that focus on the campaign is progressing so that the focus on the campaign's objective is maintained. The other organizational factors that can affect the effectiveness of the campaign are lack of senior management commitment, production or other pressures taking priority over health and safety, insufficient resources allocated to the campaign, and a poor safety culture in general. Another issue can be due to poor working conditions are likely to induce cynicism towards the campaign about employees. In addition, poor industrial relations or lack of confidence in management ability could mean that the campaign is not given the support of influential members of staff. Work patterns, for example, shift work, could also mean that some section of the workforce are not fully considered or supported, possibly due to the non-availability of key staff. Next question. List the six main elements to a management strategy when selecting a contractor. List the six main elements to a management strategy when selecting a contractor. Number 1, identification of suitable bidders. Includes here are the following: insurance details, status and depth of implementation of health and safety policy, status of the competent person, previous accident record, details of any prosecutions, details of any enforcement notices, competence of workers, references to previous clients. Number 2, identification to specific hazards. Number 3, checking of health and safety aspects of bids and selection of contractor. Number 4, contractor's agreement to be subject of client's rules. Number 5, management of the contractor on site. And number 6, checking after completion of contract. Next question. Identify the barriers to effective verbal communication. Identify the barriers to effective verbal communication. Background noise, different languages, accent or dialects, the complexity of the information, use of technical jargon, interference due to personal protective equipment, distractions, sensory impairment, and ambiguity. Next question, number 16. Outline the means by which a verbal communication could be improved. Outline the means by which verbal communication could be improved. Sufficient answer are as follows. Seeking confirmation that the message has been understood. Developing the communication skill of key personnel. Adopting in-house standards to ensure consistent use of technical terms. Ensuring communication is made at appropriate times. Example, when the recipient is free from distraction. Supplementing verbal communication with other means of communication. Example, written instruction of teaching by example. Next question, number 17. Describe the variety of training methods a trainer could use to improve the effectiveness of worker training in health and safety. Describe the variety of training methods a trainer could use to improve the effectiveness of worker training in health and safety. Sufficient answer are video, case studies, group exercises, role play, practical exercises, and quizzes. Next question, number 18. Outline the main health and safety issues to be included in an induction training program for new workers. Outline the main health and safety issues to be included in an induction training program for new workers. The main topics to be included are the organization's health and safety policy, emergency procedures, hazard specific to the workforce, and the need to comply with the health and safety requirements, health and safety responsibilities, and lines of communications, accident and first aid arrangement, welfare provision, health surveillance and consultation procedures. Next question, number 19. Describe the factors that could be considered when developing an extensive program of health and safety training within the organization. Describe the factors that should be considered when developing an extensive program of health and safety training within the organization? The answer: firstly, a training needs analysis has to be completed for the development of any program in training in order to compare what workers need to do with what they already know. In deciding what workers need to know, consideration should be given to their responsibilities, activities carried out, the risk associated with those activities, and the actions required of workers to minimize such risk. For example, senior manager will require different training needs with respect to health and safety from those of a supervisor or a general labor worker. An assessment then need to made of workers' existing knowledge, taking into account their previous experience, the levels and types of training already received, and any indication of where efficiencies may lie. Example, from incident date or by observation. From the training needs, analysis would emerge information on the number of workers involved, the types of training needed, and the resources in terms of financial cost, time, and facilities required to carry out the program. The factors to be considered at this stage would include the competence and expertise of trainers to provide the required training, the possible need to involve external sources in the means of communicating the program to workers at all levels in order to seek their commitment to and their views on the program. Next question. Outline the various measures that might be used to assess the effectiveness of a health and safety training. Outline the various measures that might be used to assess the effectiveness of a health and safety training. Answer: the possible measures are post-training evaluation by trainers, the trainees, and their supervisors, accident rates and sickness absence, levels of compliance with laid down procedures such as the wearing of personal protective equipment, the results of attitude surveys, in the number and quality of suggestions made, and concerns raised by employees with respect of health and safety. Next question, number 21. Give 4 reasons why it is important for an employer to keep a record of the training provided to its worker. Give 4 reasons why it is important for an employer to keep a record of the training provided to its worker. Sufficient answer. The main reasons are to provide proof of an employee's expected level of competence, to identify when additional or refresher training might be needed, to enable a review of the effectiveness of any training to be carried out, to assess the progress of the training program against targets and to provide evidence to be used in any future accident investigation or legal actions. Next question, number 22. Outline the factors to be considered when assessing the risk to a long distance transport vehicle driver. Outline the factors to be considered when assessing the risk to a long distance transport vehicle driver. The four factors are the job, the individual, the vehicle, and the load. Job factors would include the duration of the journey, the demands of the route, complexity, road condition, and etc. Means of communication and security issues. Example, the potential of violence. Individual factors would relate to the physical and psychological capabilities of the driver to cope with the demands of the job, taking into account the level of training provided. For the vehicle, ergonomic factors with the design and layout of the cab, tail lifts, condition of the vehicle's tires to be considered. With regards to the load, the nature of the load, example, hazardous or heavy, etc. The mean for handling the load, any emergency equipment and procedure that are or should be in place. Next question. Number 23. Explain using an example the meaning of the term risk. Explain using an example the meaning of the term risk. Sufficient answer. Risk is the likelihood of harm actually occurring together with the severity of its consequences. An example of this is the chances of someone being killed by coming into contact with electricity. Risk is the likelihood of harm actually occurring together with the severity of its consequences. An example of this is the chances of someone being killed by coming into contact with electricity. Next question, number 24. Outline the factors that should be considered when selecting individuals to assist in carrying out risk assessment in the workplace. Outline the factors that should be considered when selecting individuals to assist in carrying out a risk assessment in the workplace. The factors to be considered are the level of training in health and safety generally, and in carrying out risk assessment in particular, experience of the process or activity, the position of technical knowledge of the plant or equipment involved, the ability to interpret standards, regulations, and guidance, communication and reporting skills, attention to detail, commitment to the task. Next question. Outline the key stages of a general risk assessment. Outline the key stages of a general risk assessment. Answer. The initial stage in any assessment is to define the task and identify both the hazard associated with the task and the classes of person at risk of harm. The next stage would be to evaluate the risk arising from the hazard, to assess the effectiveness of existing precautions, and to decide whether additional measures are required to eliminate or control the risk. Finally, the finding of the assessment need to be recorded and a time scale set for the review and, if necessary, needs to be again revised. Next question, number 26. Explain why visitors to workplace should be informed of the emergency procedures. Explain why visitors to workplace should be informed of the emergency procedures. Answer: the employer has a duty of care to his employees and visitors. If an alarm is raised, visitors need to know what to expect and how to react in order to evacuate the premises safely or to take the appropriate action within endangering the lives of themselves and others. They also need to be informed about the hazardous activities in the location which they need to be aware of during their visit. They also need to be informed about the emergency contact numbers to get in touch with in case of any emergency. Next question. Number 27. Identify four types of emergency procedures that an organization might need to have in place. Identify four types of emergency procedures that an organization might be need to have in place. First, fire. Because fire can kill personnel as well as bring damage to property. So, a plan should be there to evacuate personnel from site as soon as possible. Also, it's a need to train employees on actions needed to be taken in case of fire hazards. Number 2, gas explosion. Number 3, electrical burn or electrocution. Working with electricity is a hazardous activity and can kill personnel. It can lead to shock, electrocution, burns, and fall from height. It can damage equipment and it can lead to fire or explosion. Next, accident or first aid. Next, escape of toxic gases or fumes. Next, discovery of dangerous dusts like asbestos in the atmosphere. Bomb warning. Large vehicle crashing into the premises. Aircraft crash if near a flight path. Spread of highly infectious diseases. Severe weather with high winds and flooding. Next question. Outline the strengths and weaknesses of using a checklist to complete a health and safety inspection of a workplace. Outline the strengths and weaknesses of using a checklist to complete a health and safety inspection of a workplace. Key issues to be monitored in a particular department or area of an organization can be covered using a checklist. Checklist can cover the four P's such as premises, plant, and substances, procedures, and people. They can act as an aid memoir as to what needs to be checked, and if the same ones are used interdepartmentally, comparison can be made as they have already been produced. They are easy to complete by ticking a box. However, the disadvantages of reliance on checklists are that if anything changes, items can be missed off or ignored if they are not included on the list. Ladders, for example, may be in good condition, but they have to be used properly too. Information that can be provided on a checklist could be limited purely to yes or no answers in not incorporating space for additional information. They may need to be regularly updated to reflect changes such as changes in equipment, location, etc. Next, question number 29. The number of absences due to upper limb disorder in an organization appears to be increasing. The number of absences due to upper limb disorders in an organization appears to be increasing. Outline the possible sources of information that could be consulted when investigating this issue. Outline the possible sources of information that could be consulted when investigating this issue. Answer: the possible source of information that could be considered when investigating the issue of increased upper limb disorder are absence and sickness records, the observations of supervisors, and the complaints that may have been made to members of their teams. Records from health surveillance, which also show any pre-existing ill health conditions, employees and safety representatives. The result of task analysis in the identification of repetitive action. The organization's manufacturer's information, published information such as HEC guidance, the views of specialists such as ergonomists or occupational health practitioner, information supplied by the social activities coordinator on out-of-work activities such as badminton, etc. Risk assessment such as DSA assessment. Shift rotation to include a plan of a work program, breaks, etc. Next question. Explain why it is important for an organization to set targets in terms of its health and safety performance. Explain why it is important for an organization to set targets in terms of its health and safety performance. Outline 6 types of targets. Answers: target setting is part of the health and safety management system. Setting targets is important to the measurement of health and safety performance and why the performance level is as it is. Where are you or where you are relative to where you want to be? What progress is necessary and reasonable in the circumstances? How that progress might be achieved against particular restraints, example, resources or time. The way progress might be achieved. and priorities and effective use of resources. Six types of target are objective and quantifiable targets. Example, reduction in reportable incident by 10%, no major injuries, no fatal injuries, to reduce working days lost due to injuries, to reduce working days lost due to ill health, the number of safety meetings held by a supervisor. Next question, number 31. Outline reasons why an employee may require an additional health and safety training at a later stage of employment within an organization. Outline reasons why an employee may require an additional health and safety training at a later stage of employment within an organization. Answer: reasons why an employee may require additional health and safety training at a later stage of employment: the introduction of new processes, equipment, and methods of works as a result of a job change involving different health and safety requirements and or the allocation of different responsibilities following the introduction of new legislation, where risk assessment or staff appraisal indicate that additional training is necessary, where refresher training is required, such as that required of a forklift truck operators and first aid personnel, following an accident, enforcement action, or insurance impositions, to counteract the possibility of employees becoming complacent and lax in following procedures for health and safety.